Yudalid in our copies. We finished discussing the different aspects of our divine service that are alluded to in the pasuk, where we said Pischi li achaisi rayasi yainasi samasi. So we've explained what achaisi is, the level of achaisi, the level of rayasi, of yainasi, and of samasi, and of Pischi li, which was we said was Mesiras Nefesh. And we finished last week, on Thursday, we finished discussing the fact that the tamasi, the completion, the perfection, that is dira b'tachtainim, that relates to the beginning, because ultimately the purpose is in action in the physical realm, and so that relates to the beginning of our avodah, which is the pischili, the avodah Mesiras Nefesh, of persevering with sacrifice, soul sacrifice. That was connected. So the whole thing comes full circle. And now, in chapter 7, we're going to talk about the next verse. So, the next verse, remember when we discussed these verses in Song of Songs, so we said that we translate it and we discuss it. So now we're going to move on to the second part of this verse. Shereishi nimlatol. The end says, Pischili achaisi rayasi yonasi, open for me, my sister, my bride, my dove, and my perfection. Why? So the pasuk says, "Shereishi nimlatol," because my head is full of dew. Kivutzai risisei laila, my locks, the locks of my hair, with the mist of the night, with the water of the night, the drops of the night. So we're going to explain what that means, and then we'll move on after that in chapter 8 to the next verse about Pashat Yeskutanti, which we'll talk about before we get there. Okay, so Zayin, why is it that Pischili Yernasi Samasi, why is that Shereishinim Latol, my head is full of dew? What does this mean? This is a continuation. So it says the Rebbe like this. This is what it continues in the rest of the end, the second half of this verse. Shereishinim Latol, my head is full of dew, Kivutzaisai, my locks, Risisei Laila, with the drops of night. What does this mean? As is explained in the transcripts of the discourses of the Alter Rebbe by Rabbi Pinchas raises, where he says like this: the inyan tal u'matar, where he discusses the difference between tal, dew, u'matar, and rain. Shematar nas al yidei zeh she'eid yalam min haaretz. How is there rain? Rain comes because a mist ascends from down here, from the land, and that then in turn comes back down as rain. This is why this idea that there's the Eid Yalam Min Haaretz, a mist goes up from down here, and then that brings the rain. That symbolizes the fact that rain comes as a result of our service. We begin that process and bring about the rain. The Aretz, what's going on here? This is related or dependent on our service down here. This is why the verse says, if you follow my statutes, you follow my laws, so then I will give the rains in their time. So God says, if you will keep my commandments, I will give you the rain. So the rain is dependent on what we do. If we follow God's commands, so then so we see that the rain is related to what goes on down here. Meaning that it is dependent on our service down here. But as the Gemara says, tal, dew, doesn't ever stop. The Gemara talks about the fact that it's not a requirement to mention tal in Shemay Esrei, to mention the dew in the Amidah. Because why? Because it is automatic. We mention it ultimately, but it's something that's not dependent on our service. It's not conditional on our davening for it, or praying for it, or mentioning it. The dew doesn't ever stop. This means that notwithstanding, regardless of how we serve, what we do, what our behavior is down here, the energy comes, the blessing comes from above, because of this essential love that Hashem has. So because God is essentially bound with what's going on down here, so therefore, regardless of what we do, regardless of our behavior, there's always going to be the dew is always going to descend from above.
That's why Mountain Dew.
That's why people.
Where they get it from, and it's like an energy drink.
Right. You see energy. It's always, you can always count on it. This is why the verse concludes with these words. Because my head is full of dew. What does this mean? This idea that we can draw or connect with God, be bound with God to the level of tamasi, the ultimate level of tamasi, the completion, where we complete Him and we become united and totally one together down here. And as we said, tamasi is something that is experienced specifically down here in the lowest realm because it's rooted in the highest level. So that is mitzadin natal because of dew. Another aspect here. So first thing is that why is it that we can reach the level of tamasi, that we can be totally bound with God, and specifically down here in this world? That alludes to tal, since tal symbolizes the fact. The dew symbolizes the fact that God is essentially bound with us. So that's why that essential bond can then be revealed in tamasi. So we see the relationship. But then there's another thing. That is what makes it possible. Tamasi is possible because of the essential love, which that is expressed in tal. So it's as if God is saying, how is it possible? Why is it that you reach the level of tamasi? Because Reishinim tal, because I am bound essentially with you, irrespective, regardless of what it is that you do, regardless of your behavior. But then there's another thing, which is the level of that we access, the level of godliness that we access once we reach tamasi. Another thing. After our doing all these things of achaysi, rayasi, yanasi, and samasi, azai then noisnim loy loyrak mashe hisig vihigia ayidei avidasi b'surus l'sata. So then, once you finish this level of samasi, once you've reached that level, you've completed all these steps. So you don't only receive that which you've earned. You're also given the level of dew. This is a level which, as we've explained before, that dew is not something that's dependent on our service. So that symbolizes a level of godliness that is not accessible through our service. It's not something we can access on our own. It's just that after you complete your service, you're given from above. You're also given this level of Reishinim Latal. So the first thing we've said was that Reishinim Latal, my head is filled with dew, explains how Tamasi reaches the highest level. Because Reishinim Latal symbolizes the essential bond that God has with us, regardless of our behavior. So therefore it doesn't matter. It's not higher or lower, it doesn't matter. Then the next thing we're saying is that once you reach the level of tamasi, so then Reishinim Latal, you're given this level of tal, of dew. What does that mean? So there's a give and take. When we serve Hashem, like we quoted before, we do mitzvahs, then Hashem gives us rain, He gives us our sustenance. So that give and take means we're accessing a level that's dependent on our service. How far could we reach in our service? We're limited, therefore how far up we can reach is limited. So there's or to put it in the Chassidic terminology, there's an isarusa dilatata, there's an awakening from below, reaching up to God from below, and then there's the isarusa dilaela, that draws an awakening from above. So we can draw God's attention. But then there's another level of isarusa, there's another awakening, there's another level that comes down from above, which is not accessible. We can't access it on our own. It's just that once we've established that connection, then God gives us this reward from above. Just like, you can do something, you go to work and you earn a living, you make a living, and that the salary that you're getting is commensurate with the amount of effort you put in to the work.
You get out what you put in.
You can take out what you can put in. But then sometimes, exactly, you could. But then sometimes you can get even more. Then there's something you find something. You can work, let's say, on a full week, and at the end of the week you get your paycheck, and the paycheck is a result of what you did. But then you're walking down the street one day and you stumble upon a hidden treasure, and that's it. You find a lotto, or you win the lottery. That's something that has nothing to do with what you've put in. So that's an entirely different level. That's one that's not dependent on your actions. So that's Reishinim Latal. Since Tal is Loima'atzer, since the dew doesn't stop, meaning it's something that's not dependent on our service, it represents a level of divine energy that's beyond what we can access on our own. And that's given to us as a reward once we reach Tamasi. Not so much a reward as in the context of reward and punishment, but just it's granted to us as a gift from above. This is also what it means that when we say Pischuli Kechudash al Machat, Nasa ani yaftach lachem kepischei shalom. We quoted when we said this when we quoted the pasuk Pischuli, open for me. So we quoted another medrash where it says, open for me, like the Chudash al Machat, open for me. We said Pischuli just means open, but we said Pischuli Kechudash al Machat, open for me like the point of a needle. V'ani yaftach lachem kepischei shalom. I will open for you wide like the entrance to the antechamber, to the hall, or like the structure in the temple, the antechamber of the temple. So what does that mean? So it's explained. The antechamber in the temple, in the Beis Hamikdash, did not have doors. All of the in the Mishnah, where it describes the structure of the temple and the layout, so it talks about the different doors, everything, and it says there's one entryway that didn't have doors. All of them had doors, with the exception of the Pischei Shel Ulam. The Ulam, that antechamber, that entrance into the house-like structure in the Beis Hamikdash, that didn't have doors. It was always open, unlike all the other ones that had doors. So what does this mean? It was always open. This represents a level that's so high, a level of divine blessing and energy that's so high that it comes on its own. That no man can reach on their own through their service. Why? Because the doors are always open. So if they're always open, it's a level that represents beyond. It's the ulam. It's inside. It's one that you can't reach on your own, but it's always open. In order to reach there, in order to get to the ulam, which is on the inside, a place that's not accessible to everybody, you need to go through all the other entryways, all the other doors. After you finish, you complete the service of my sister, my bride, my dove, and my perfection, after you're able to receive from above everything that's in the ulam, in that antechamber that remains hidden, that remains inaccessible, without any reservation, because there's no door that obstructs, that closes the door and would obstruct that flow. So once you've gone through all the other doors, once you've reached through all those other stages, then the door of the temple is wide open to you. Meaning that everything inside is accessible to you, and it's accessible to you at all times. It's never closed. Okay, so that's the second half of the pasuk Sheish Nimla Tol. As you notice, we don't explain in this mimer here, Kivut Seisai, Yisisei Laila, that's explained elsewhere. He doesn't get into it here. Okay, chapter 8. So, V'hinei, everything we said till now, from Pischuli till Kivutzei Yisisei Leila, that whole thing, that is all God speaking to the Jewish people. But the next pasuk tells us, Pashatiti eskutanti eichacha el b'shena. I've taken off my garments. How can I put it on? Rechatzti es raglai. I've washed my feet. Eichacha tanfeim. How can I make them dirty? So simply, when you read these psukim, it seems that God is telling us, open the door. I'm standing outside, they're full of dew and I'm full of rain. Open the door for me. So what is the bride that's inside? What do the Yidden say to the Eibishter? They say, I've taken off my clothing, I don't want to put them back on, and I've washed my feet, I don't want to get them dirty. Or how can I put my clothes on, how can I get them dirty? The Targum, and that's how most of the commentaries understand these that this whole verse is a response of the Yidden, Knesset Yisrael, to the Eibishter, to God. The Targum actually translates it differently though. He explains it, interprets it, that the first part, Pashatati Eskutante, I removed my garment, that is the Yidden saying to the Eibishter, I've removed my garments, how can I put them back on? And then Rachatzti Esraglai, that is the ministering angels, we'll get into soon, that they respond. Once the Yidden say, we've taken off our clothes, we don't want to put them back on, so then the angels say, if so, then guess what? We've washed our feet, we don't want to make them dirty. It's the angels. And in Chassidus, in the Mamorim that discuss this, it actually explains it in line with the understanding of the Targum. So let's see what he says. Okay. To this, the Yidden answer as follows. Due to the fact that I'm sleeping in exile, as we explained before, and we'll explain again in a moment, I've removed my garments, how can I put them back on? What's What does this mean? Kedisa b'medrash. The Medrash says, Shakutanti, who big day kohuna, big day malchus. The Medrash here on this pasuk says that what's kutanti? What is my shirt, my garments? What does it refer to? It refers to the garments, the vestments of the priesthood and of kingship, of royalty. Which is what? When you levusha mitzvahs, this represents the garments of mitzvahs. K'maimir Azal, as the sages say, Shalidei kima mitzvah nasa levusha chada. That mitzvahs are compared to garments. Why are mitzvahs compared to garments? Because on our own, as human beings, as created beings, we can't approach and accept godliness. So just like if you go out and look into the sun, you can't look into the sun without sunglasses, without a visor, without something to block it. The sun is too intense. It's too intense for our eyes that are not able to properly receive the intense light of the sun. So you need to put something in between. You need to wear something, put something on to protect you from the sun, and then you can actually perceive it. So the same thing is with ourselves. We're not able to bask in the glory of godliness. We talked about, remember the last mimer, not lachzes b'noyam Hashem, to bask in the pleasantness of God. We can't do that on our own. We're not capable of doing it without wearing protective gear. Just like an astronaut in outer space needs to wear a spacesuit, we also need to wear a spacesuit. So specifically, we refer to putting on garments that when we come to the world to come, in Olam Haba, there you need to have garments to be able to. So the more mitzvahs you do, the more garments you have, the better you're equipped, and therefore the higher you can go, the more divine pleasure you can access because you're wearing stronger garments. So the mitzvahs are referred to as garments that sort of serve as a way for us to approach to be able to connect with God. So, but we're saying we've removed our garments, meaning we don't have mitzvahs. We're not wearing those garments. We don't have mitzvahs. Amnam mitzadin hagolos. We said ani yishena begolus. Right. So since we're in exile, hein hagolos kapshute. Both the literal exile. We're living in exile without the temple. Ubefrat hagolos hayeser amok. And especially due to the deeper exile, the more profound exile, which is mitzad hakel zar asher bekir b'cha, the yetzer hara, the evil inclination, who's within ourselves. That's an inner exile that we have within ourselves. That is the exile that enslaves us, that exiles us, the body and the animal soul. Due to this exile, we are in a state of sleep, as we explained earlier in the Maimer, that exile is related to a time of sleep. Why? What does it mean that you're sleeping? What is it, and what does it mean to be in exile? Meaning you're lacking the ability to see. Lift your eyes heavenward and see who created these. You lack the idea of the capacity to hear Shema Yisrael Gamer, the oneness of Hashem. So we don't see it, we don't comprehend it, we don't perceive it. That's the idea of sleep. We don't see and hear. And so too, we're lacking all the other faculties and functions that should be working properly when you're awake, but when you're asleep, they're not functioning properly. We're dysfunctional to such an extent that we're so asleep that we've removed our garments. We remain without the priestly vestments, without the priestly garments, levushe malchus, and the royal garments, shehem levushe mitzvahs, which, as we said, those are the garments of mitzvahs, the idea of mitzvahs. So we're naked and bare. We're lacking even mitzvahs. Not only are we lacking an internal understanding and appreciation for godliness, not only are we lacking the awareness, the perspective, the sensitivity, but we're not even doing mitzvahs. We don't even have the benefit of having the garments of actually doing the mitzvahs of Payil. We're lacking all that. And so not only are we lacking it, we've taken it off. On Meisef Litain, the Yid continues and says, how can I put it back on? Meaning, the Kivan Shekvar Einim Murgul Bazeh, hat sich abgewöhnt from them, since he's no longer accustomed to doing this, he's not familiar with it. He doesn't know how he can come back to the path of Torah mitzvahs. So not only do we remain without mitzvahs, but we don't even know how to get back to it. We've become so used to living without it, we've become so used to this exile mentality that's set in, that's become the new normal, and we don't even know how to live life in any other way. We can't fathom any other type of life. That's both as a result of the external, the macro gullus, exile that we're in, that leads to this, but primarily that's the result of that internal gullus that's inside of each and every one of us. Okay. So, Mamshech, how are we doing on time? Okay, perfect. So the verse continues, I've washed my feet, how can I soil them? This means The verse says, "Isi es havaya yoshev al kisei, v'chol tzva hashamayim oimid alav miminay mismailay." The verse says, "I've seen it's Micha, I believe, Michayo, I think says this, that I've seen." He tells Melech Yisrael that I've seen God sitting on his throne, and all his royal, his heavenly hosts, Oimid alav, stand above him, Mimino Musmailai. They stand to his right and to his left. So the commentators all explain, what does it mean they stand to his right and to his left? We know there's no left, Lamaila. Right? The Medrash says, it says, Yamin Hashem Remeima, Yamin Hashem Oisachayil. Wait, so he has two right hands. There's no left. So what does it mean? And it brings other verses as well. Yamin Hashem Nadari Bakayach, Yamin Hashem Tiratz Oyev. Again, two right hands. So what does it mean? What? Right represents kindness, the stronger, the dominant. There's no weakness in that sense. Right, it's the exact opposite of dancing with two left feet. God dances with two right feet, exactly. So it explains, Hainu, sheyesh l'mayla ma'minu masmim. This means that you have the righties and you have the lefties, or the rightists and the leftists. Meaning you have angels that advocate positively for the Jewish people, and you have the prosecuting ones, the ones on the left, the negative ones, the judgmental ones. The Lachain, I'm sorry? The Lachain, it's interesting, from here, from this point on, till the end of this chapter, until the middle of chapter 9, for a few lines in, is what made this mimer famous, for the most part, because the Rebbe said this very emotionally and choked up and cried throughout. From these next few lines, it's interesting that it started, the Rebbe said the mimer very slowly, very methodically, started speeding up around chapter 8, almost as if to try and avoid that, and then the emotions just gushed forth. I encourage you to listen to it yourselves, to listen to this chunk of the Maimer. It's about 5 minutes where the Rebbe cries and he has to stop and compose himself and then continues and then breaks down again. It's a very moving, very, very powerful thing where the Rebbe is talking about the ministering angels trying to wash their hands clean of the Jewish people. And we'll talk about that maybe a little bit later. We'll reflect on this. Maybe we have a chance. Okay. So he says like this. Therefore, kasher magas ha'idiyah oidis ha'maimer d'matzav lamata. When in heaven they receive this information. Once the Jewish people reply to God and say, Pashatati eskutonte, I don't know this anymore. I'm not familiar with you and your whole religion anymore. I'm not familiar with this. So then the heavenly angels, to the extent that not only have they taken off their clothing, but it's also we don't even know how to approach it again. We're totally don't identify with it anymore. So then the attribute of judgment comes before God, and says, I've washed my feet. How can I make them dirty? What does that mean? I've washed my feet. How to make them dirty? So he explains. The verse says, the earth is my footstool. Right? God says, Hashemayim kisi, the heaven is my seat, and the earth, the land, meaning our world, is not just physical. This is my footstool, my footrest. Gufa. What is Hadoim Ragli? What is the footstool of God specifically on the land? On the holiest space in the world, which is Beis Hamikdash, the temple, Olav Nemar, on which it says, make for me a temple, and I will dwell in it. So God's dwelling, God's footstool, as it were, his place down here in this world, is the Beis Hamikdash. What?
A little off topic, but is that a metaphor? Because obviously people have feet, and we don't think of Hashem as
right, certainly.
Actual feet. I'm saying it's more of a metaphor.
Absolutely. Yeah. Amnam, Bisman Hagolus. Nevertheless, in the time of exile, when we're asleep, which as we said before, we're asleep meaning that we don't see and we don't hear, we lack any perspective and any godly awareness. And therefore, as a result, and so therefore God retreats higher and higher. Further removed from this world. So the attribute of mercy, of judgment, argues, I've washed my feet. We have nothing to do with the land being my footstool. Nothing to do with it. I've washed my feet clean of it. And if so, how would we make it dirty? In other words, how can we come back and have a divine space, a dwelling place for God in the Beis Hamikdash? Even in a time when the moon was complete, which is Bimei Shlema. What is the Kaimos Sira B'Shlemus, which appears a lot in Chassidus. This idea is, the Medrash says, that there are 30 generations of kingship. God says from Avram till Shlomo, not till Shlomo, till the end of the Malchei Yisrael, Malchei Yehuda, is 30 generations. So it begins with Avram, and Shlomo Melech is number 15. Shlomo Melech is in the middle. So it's just like the moon that begins from nothing and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger until it's complete, and then it starts to wane. So the same thing is there's a build-up from Avram Avinu, more holiness, more great leaders, till we reach Shlomo. That was the peak, and then after Shlomo, everything started to fall apart. All the kings started to become Rishayim, and evil things started to get worse and worse. So it started to wane. That's when the moon started to get small. So Shlomo Melech was right in the middle of these 30 generations. That's like Kaima Seder B'Shalmusam when the moon is full. So the height of godly presence and light in the world was the time of Shlomo, the beginning of the first temple. That's the greatest time of Hashkaras Hashchina Lamata in this world. The greatest divine revelation was in the time of Shlomo Melech, Kaima Seder B'Shalmusam. And even so, by Shlomo, it says Shlomo Melech says himself, Nemar Hashemayim Ushmei Hashemayim Lo Yichalku Lucha, heaven and all the heavenly realms can't house you, can't contain you, God. Afki Abayis Hazeh. And certainly not this house. When Shlomo Melech finishes building the Beis Hamikdash, he's praising God and he says, all of heavens can't contain you, and this house is going to be able to contain you. Sort of a rhetorical question. So if that was the case when Kaima Seder B'Shalmusam, in the height of godly revelation up to this point in history, so certainly how much more so Kasher Ani Yeshena when we're asleep. We removed our garments. How can we make it dirty? That's what the ministering angels say to God. So God's calling out to us. He's telling us, open the door, and then once we do that, we can have all these great levels till we reach the level of Tamasi, and then we even merit this level of Tal, the highest levels that are inaccessible on our own, that are gifted to us by God, levels that will never cease. But then what do we say? We say, Pashat Yiskatante, we're totally unfamiliar with you. We totally have no connection, we're busy, we're stuck, and totally consumed by this inner exile within us, and we're totally indifferent to you, God. And once the Yid says that, so the angels in heaven say, so forget about them. It's done. And it's specifically this part where the angels are saying, forget about them. Rachatz Yisrael, the Rebbe breaks down. You can barely get through this. Okay, chapter 9. So what happens? How do we break this issue? God's calling out to us. We're saying we don't know who you are. The angels are saying, forget about them. They moved on, you move on as well. But God is not satisfied. So what happens? What's the next verse say? What the continuation say? Shalach doidi yodei min acher. My lover, God, puts his hand into the hole, into the lock, into the latch. So this verse says like this: Shalach doidi yodei min acher. That my lover puts his hand, he passes his hand. Again, there are multiple levels of understanding it. Some say he removes it from there. Others say he moves it in front of it to show it. And there's a little keyhole. There's a latch in the door. And when he passes his hand through it, or he puts his hand in, according to some commentators, to open the latch, which is as we're going to say, so then may I hamu alai. My innards start to churn within me. I become overwhelmed with emotion, a yearning, and a desire to him. So at first I say, Pashat Yiskatante, I don't want to open the door. I can't open the door. I don't know who you are. We're strangers. We've moved on. But then when I see his hand attempting to open the lock, to open the door himself, he's asking me to open, and I'm not opening it. So he's attempting to open himself. Suddenly I see such love from him that I begin to churn with a deep desire and yearning for him. One of the interpretations is the opposite, that it refers to a time of Golus, that Shalach Yadim Min Acher, he removes his hand from the lock, and once he leaves me, suddenly now I appreciate what I'm missing. Suddenly I wake up and I realize, oh my gosh, what have I done? He's left. And that's when I may hamolai. But as we're going to explain here, it's the opposite, that he's reaching out to us, as explained in some of the commentaries, and that leads to this reaction. So Alzen Nemar, Doidi Shalach Yadim Min Acher, that my lover puts his hand into the hole. V'hainu, Shedoidi, my lover, which is who? Zesh Alav Nemar Kol Doidi Defik. This is the same one who we said is the one who was knocking earlier. Which we said, why is the Eibishter knocking if he's standing outside? Why is he knocking? Because when we call him our lover, it's representing the essential love. This great love and essential love that God has for us. Which is why even though he's outside and even though this relationship has been damaged or seems to be no relationship, he's still called our lover because he loves us unconditionally even then. So therefore, since he loves us unconditionally, so we tell him we've moved on, we're not opening the door, it doesn't faze him. So notwithstanding what we've said, and notwithstanding the fact that the angels, all his whole entourage in heaven, tell him to leave us alone, to forget about us, because of his intense love for us, he puts his hand into the hole. Hainu. This means he's not waiting for us to open the door. He himself makes a hole. This is like the sages say, that he carves out a hole, a niche for him beneath the kisei hakavod, beneath the throne of glory. This represents a level. This hole that's carved out under the throne of glory, under the kisei hakavod, is a place where the Maiminim Esmilim don't have any access. This reference of Chatalei Chatira Mitachas Kisei HaKavod is from the Medrash. Talks about an interpretation on one of the psukim where it says that a certain pasuk refers to Menashe. Menashe, Melech Yehuda. Menashe was a terrible king. He was a sinful man. He was an idolater, and he caused the Yidden to idolatry, and he was killing people. He was terrible. So it depends a few days in the Gemara about it. But yeah, you can accept the one that he did tshuva. And this is actually the story where the opinion that he did tshuva is from here, from this reference, where it says that he was captured by the Assyrians. They put him in a copper pot, and they lit a fire under him. They were going to cook him alive. And so he starts calling out. So Menashe was an idolater, so he starts calling out to all his gods. And obviously nothing, it wasn't working, nothing was happening. And then he remembered what his father, who was a tzaddik, Yechizkiyahu, said, that he would always call out to Eibishter, Batzalacha, when he would call out to the Eibishter. So he called out to God as well. And he did it in a way, in ulterior way. He wanted to sort of corner God. First he cried out to his gods. And like that, he gave God no choice. He has to. But anyway, the point is he calls out to God. And he's calling out to God, and when suddenly his cries reach heaven, so all the angels, the Maiminim Asmilim, say, Menashe is calling. They start closing the windows. That's what it says. They start closing all the windows in heaven so that his cries shouldn't get in. And the Eibishter hears Menashe's cries, and he's getting his attention. And they say, "What are you doing? He's Hemid Tzelem Behechol. He put an idol in the temple. He's such a terrible person. How could you?" So what does the Eibishter do? So Chatalei Chatira Mitachas Kisei HaKavod, the Eibishter carves out a place for him under the throne of glory. He says, "How could it be that I would ignore those cries?" He says, the Eibishter says, if you do this, if you don't allow his cries to get in, so nobody could ever do tshuva.
He's against him from Shai Anovi.
Sorry?
He's against him from Shai Anovi.
Yeah.
Kushos.
And Chizkiah was a big tzaddik. So anyway, and then he did tshuva. He cries out to God. So God says, if I ignore him, so how can anybody ever return? How can anybody ever do tshuva? So God carves out a place. So what does it mean that he carves the place for him under the throne? It means that even though there are angels saying he can't let him in here, so God goes above them. And Tachas Kisei HaKavod, that means that's a level where the angels suddenly have no jurisdiction. Their protests and their arguments have no bearing. It's such a high level where their arguments have no bearing. So tshuva reaches a deeper level, even beyond all those levels of Maiminim and Masmilim, beyond it all. This is similar to what the pasuk says. Under him, beneath him is the pillars or the strong of the world. That specifically in this level of tachas, beneath the throne of glory, it's beyond even the Zerei, even beyond even the strong, the mighty of the world. It goes beyond all of those levels. So what is the meaning of this hole? This hole that he carves out for him, hu asiyas hanekev. This is making a hole b'mechitza shel barzel in the iron curtain shebein Yisrael avinu shebashamayim, between Jews and their Father in heaven. There's that iron curtain that separates us, and the hole pierces between that. It opens up an opening between that in that separation. So that through that the inspiration that comes from above should reach us. In other words, God's calling out to us, but there's a blockage. There's a blockage. So he's calling out, he's telling us he loves us, he's asking us to return, but it's not affecting us. Why isn't it affecting us? Because there's a wall. So what does God do? He makes a hole in the wall. And like that, his call to us can reach us. So not just for our cry to reach him, but for his cry to reach us, for that inspiration, for that hand that he extends to us to reach us, he has to make that hole, and it's him. It's he who makes that hole that allows us to hear his call and then respond. Furthermore, Shakadosh Baruch Hu einim mistapek b'achtira shechoter mitachas kisei hakavod. God is not satisfied with merely making that hole under the kisei hakavod, meaning just piercing that boundary between us. Elagam shelech yodei min achar. He sticks his hand into it. Shel inyan ha'ezer v'asiyua. This means he's extending a hand in help. From above, even to somebody who's on a level where he's totally estranged, totally unfamiliar with the way of Torah. Even to him, God extends His hand to the point where he's totally unfamiliar. He doesn't even begin to know how he can start serving God. Nonetheless, God extends His hand, reaches out to help and to guide and to lead us and to take us with Him. How are we doing on time? 5 minutes. The Inyan Zeh Poyel, and this causes Kesima Kasav, as the end of the pasuk, as we mentioned earlier. Umei Hamu alav. My stomach churns and yearns for him. The Gemara says like this: the stomach begins from the heart. The top of the stomach is from the heart. And then that leads to the rest of the stomach into the digestive tract. This help that offered from God by him sticking his hand into, not only carving the hole, but shalach yodeh, putting his hand into the hole, this offers help from above. Helps even the one who's acknowledging and saying, I've stripped, I don't have the mitzvahs. It can cause him also to have this yearning, that his heart also. So you go from being totally unfamiliar, being totally disconnected, totally uninvolved, to suddenly having your heart involved. Whether you understand it or not, whether you know it or not. It causes an arousal of his heart, it awakens his heart, which is the beginning of the stomach, till it reaches the lower part of the stomach, the digestive tract, which its function is to separate between that which is good for the person, that the body retains, and that which is not good, that it excretes, it releases from the body. Meaning your innards begin to start functioning properly because of this idea of God sticking His hand, my lover is sticking his hand into the hole, which happens from above. So when God sticks His hand in, and who is He reaching out to? Somebody who's totally unfamiliar, somebody who has no feeling, no connection, doesn't feel at all and feels no familiarity. But when God opens that door and sticks His hand out, so whether you understood it or not, and the Rebbe is talking, we'll talk about this maybe I guess on Thursday a little bit more, the historical context of this mimer. We're talking about people that are at the beginning of the 60s. People were awakened. They were looking for meaning. They didn't know what they were looking for. They just knew they were looking. So that's what the Rebbe is saying here. Shemavin or any Mavin. We're talking about somebody who might not even understand, but he's stirred. His heart is stirred. And from the heart being stirred, that reaches the lower part of the me'ayim, of the stomach, which is that then you can start to understand. You can start recognizing what's true and what's not true. Once that search, that quest for truth begins, suddenly you can start to understand, this is what I need to take, this is real, this is what I need to embrace, and this is what I need to discard, and we can start navigating our lives properly informed as a result of God sticking His hand out. But that is all initiated from above. So here, we've said that we find ourselves in a state of galus where we totally feel disconnected, totally uninvolved, totally indifferent to God. But because God loves us, essentially, it doesn't matter to Him. He's persistent. Not only is He persistent, not only does He keep knocking, but the longer we keep ignoring Him, but He finally takes the initiative and He carves out that hole, carves out a niche for us, a space for us, which is beyond any of the angels, any of the people that are trying to rationalize or judge and say these people are forgone, they're lost, there's no hope for them. God doesn't pay any attention to it, and He opens up that hole, and not only opens that hole, but He sticks His hand in and offers us His hand to be able to take us out and lead us, and that stirs us, that moves us, that we feel inspired, and hopefully not only are we inspired, but that inspiration then leads to the lower part of the abdomen, the lower part of the stomach, which is that we can start appreciating it and understanding what's going on. Can we? Quarter after?
They're davening in the front, so we won't be disturbing them.
Okay, so should we finish? Okay, so let's keep going. Well, maybe, so you want to skip Thursday? Okay. Yeah, so
I did this Thursday I'm here. I don't know next Thursday or not.
If you want,
do we want? Do we want to finish Thursday? Do we want to finish now?
We'll finish Thursday. I think
We'll finish Thursday. Okay.
we'll